Welcome to Desperately Seeking the 80s. I am Meg.
And I am Jessica. And Meg and I have been friends since 1982. We got through, what did we got through? Middle school and high school together right here in New York City, where we still live.
And where we podcast about New York City in the 80s. I do Ripped from the Headlines.
And I do pop culture.
Should we just dive in?
Oh, please.
Okay. I feel like maybe we don't need much more preamble. So we are coming to you live. This is a recording, but we are live today at Malt and Mold.
Yay, Malt and Mold, amazing place.
Yes, it's on 21st Street and 2nd Avenue. It's one of my absolute favorite neighborhood hangouts, and I'm so grateful to Kevin and all the people at Malt and Mold for inviting us to do this.
Also, our audience might participate.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a new wrinkle to our broadcast.
Okay. So I'm going to get started. I usually do an engagement question for Jessica, but this could be an engagement question for, kind of everybody, if you like. Did you, Jessica, watch soap operas in
Absolutely
the 80s?
Not. No. So ask other people. And I know that our friend right here did.
Okay. So I'm hearing ABC shows, right? So the ABC shows were All My Children, General Hospital, Days of Our Lives.
That's NBC.
Oh, so sorry. I take it back. Thank you. See, we have people
Busy.
who know.
Busy, do you want to shout out what they were? Do you want to tell us?
Right.
Okay. All My Children, One Life to Live, General Hospital.
Now, I actually watched CBS. But I know it's because my grandmother.
What's wrong with you?
As the World Turns, Guiding Light, The Young and the Restless. And that's because that's what my grandmother watched. So every summer, that's when I got to watch soap operas, was in the summertime when I stayed with my grandmother. But yeah, ABC was super popular. What about, do you guys remember Greg and Jenny? Okay, I know. You guys are looking at me like I'm crazy.
I love that Busy's like, how dare you ask such a stupid question?
All right. My sources for today's story are the New York Times, the Rialto Report, Who Killed Teresa Allure, which is a podcast about murdered Canadian women, which is interesting. And now I've been listening to a podcast about murdered Canadian women.
That's like that MTV game show in the 90s, Dead or Canadian. Remember that?
Kind of.
It was Colin Quinn. It was like a section on Colin Quinn's weird game show, Dead or Canadian. And people usually got it wrong. So,
well, I've learned a lot about Canada this past week. In the summer of 1982, New York was treating Marie-Josée Saint-Antoine very well. The last 3 years had been a whirlwind for the 24-year-old. She'd grown up in Montreal and started modeling there, but by 1979, she'd exhausted the opportunities of her hometown and was ready for the big city. Eileen Ford, a Ford modeling agency, snapped her up right away, and she was booked frequently for both print and runway. In September 1981, she decided to move over to Elite Model Management.
Ooh.
Yes, which at the time was considered the younger, hipper agency. And that's a callback to episode 38, 10 Gracie Square and Model Apartment. I've got a lot of callbacks in this story today.
Cool.
Elite is located in this very neighborhood that we are in right now on 28th Street and Park Avenue. So Marie-Josée found an apartment in the neighborhood at 246 East 23rd Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues, just a couple blocks right there. The white brick building is a 4-floor walk-up with a buzzer system, and each of the 4 tenants had a floor to themselves. Taco Bell is on the ground floor, if you guys can picture it, on 23rd Street. Marie-Josée lived alone in the apartment on the 4th floor and paid $900 a month, which would be about $2,805 in today's money. And apartments in that building rent for, what do you think?
$4,000.
Close. $5,000 a month.
In a walk-up? Is that what you
Yes.
just said?
This is a nice
5,000?
neighborhood.
I know,
Jessica.
but I mean,
Oh my God.
I mean,
wait.
come on. I'm thinking white brick 60s walk-up. Meh.
Sure, but she also had the whole floor.
I'm not convinced. Go ahead.
All right. Wednesday night, June 17th, 1982, Marie-Josée went to Xenon on West 43rd Street.
That's a callback.
Xenon was the preferred nightclub for the fashion crowd. And that night was Elite's annual T-shirt party. Apparently, all the Elite models would wear just a T-shirt at the annual T-shirt party.
That's subtle.
Yeah.
Wait. Hold on. Xenon, that's a callback.
Yes, it is.
All
I didn't
right,
write
I'm
down
just-
what the callback was, but
All
yes,
right.
we
Well,
have talked about
I'm
Xenon
interested
before.
that it's the elite model thing, Xenon, because that was where you went if you couldn't get into studio.
Oh, really?
Yes. It was second class.
Huh.
Yes.
All right. While she was there that evening, she ran into an old friend from Montreal, Alain Monpetit. Alain was from a wealthy Montreal family and was a popular radio DJ and TV personality known as the King of Disco. In many ways, Montreal is a small town, and he and Marie-Josée had many friends in common, and their families knew each other. Alain was married, but that didn't stop him from dating Marie-Josée's close friend, Paula Charbonneau. Alain used his press pass to get into the party that night at Xenon, and he was accompanied by his new girlfriend, Jackie Lee. Paula had recently broken up with him. Now, Alain was a big deal in Montreal, but less of a big deal in New York. It's fair to say that Marie-Josée was running with a much chicer crowd than Alain. Alain had spent the previous summer starring in a dinner theater production of a play by Ben Starr, whose claim to fame was that he wrote the Brady Bunch episode The Personality Kid, where Peter Brady imitates Humphrey
Are
Bogart.
you kidding? Pork chops and applesauce.
I knew you were going to do that for me. She doesn't disappoint. By comparison, Marie-Josée had just signed with the hottest modeling agency in the world and was rubbing elbows with Grace Jones and JFK Jr.
But not at Xenon.
No, they were there that night.
At
They were.
Xenon?
Yes, that very night.
My whole world is turned upside down
It was
right now.
a special night because of the elite.
Because of the t-shirts.
T-shirt
All right,
party.
that would get you to Xenon.
So that night, Marie-Josée got home from Xenon at a reasonable hour and was in bed by 1 a.m. The next day, she ran into her friend Kim Delaney near Gramercy Park. Kim was 21 and a model with Elite. For the last year, she'd been playing teenager Jenny Gardner on All My Children. Yes.
Look, because he's glowing.
Kim would go on to play Detective Diane Russell on NYPD Blue in the mid-90s.
Ooh.
Okay, so you guys all, from Kim Delaney. All right, yes. Thank you, Ollie. On the afternoon of June 18th, 1982, Kim stopped to chat with Marie-Josée, who was walking with a man Kim didn't know, and Marie-Josée didn't introduce them. In the early evening, this is when it takes a turn. Around 6 p.m., Jamie Gillis and his girlfriend Kathleen O'Reilly returned home to 246 East 23rd Street. Jamie was a porn star, but not just any porn star.
He was a legitimate porn star.
He was the De Niro of porn. That's actually what he was known as. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jamie Gillis because he was very famous in his own right. He was born in New York, and after graduating magna cum laude from Columbia, he started driving a cab to make ends meet. When he answered an ad in the Back of the Village Voice, the rest was history. Al Goldstein.
Yes!
Once described Jamie as, quote, sexually the wildest, most decadent, off-the-wall guy in the business. That is saying a lot. That's a callback, by the way, to episode 1, The Good Time Gal and Porno Pioneers, and a callback to episode 45, DuPont's Revenge and WAP, Women Against Pornography. Jamie. Yes, her.
Yes, Ale is miming, holding up the sign. What is it? The woman in the meat grinder.
Yes.
Yes.
Jamie had a huge influence on the pornography industry.
That was a really, really major missed opportunity for timing.
I thought I did it perfectly. Hold it a little bit longer. Right.
That's what it is.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about pornography because I learned something this week.
What?
He originated gonzo pornography, which places the viewer directly in the scene. In order to create the effect, often the performers are the ones who are filming the action. So gonzo porn, which looks and feels homemade, which is part of its charm, tends to use far fewer full body or wide shots in favor of close-ups and tight shots. Jamie was a groundbreaker and appeared in more than 470 movies as an actor. And then he went on to direct. As one does. Back in 1982, he was 39 at the top of his field and living downstairs from Marie-Josée. When he and his girlfriend Kathleen returned home from a day at the races, they noticed 2 white pumps at the bottom of the stairs in the entryway. They were immediately concerned and checked with their neighbors. There were only 4 apartments in the building. Jamie and Kathleen had an extra key to Marie-Josée's apartment, and when no one answered the door, they let themselves in. Marie-Josée's body was just inside the door, lying face up. She was wearing jeans and a blouse. She had been stabbed multiple times in the heart and once in the back, and had defensive wounds on her arm and bruises on her body. There were no signs of forced entry or robbery, and the murder weapon was missing. Marie-Josée was planning to fly home to Montreal the next day to surprise her father for Father's Day. Instead, he received a phone call from Alain Montpetit, giving him the terrible news of his daughter's death. Alain told her father he was in New York and he offered to identify the body on behalf of the family. Now, at first, the police were stumped. They assumed Marie-Josée knew her killer, but that's really all they had to go on. Kim Delaney worked with a sketch artist and produced a composite drawing of the man she saw walking with Marie-Josée on the afternoon of her murder. The sketch looked a little like Marie-Josée's ex-boyfriend, Dominique Silberstein, who was a fashion photographer, but it also looked a little like Alain Montpetit and a little like Jamie Gillis. The police decided to zero in on Jamie. When they interviewed him, Jamie told the police he'd never stab anyone to death because he was squeamish about blood. So they asked him how he would have killed Marie-Josée. And Jamie said that maybe he'd use a baseball bat. He also said he'd never kill a pretty girl without first sexually molesting her.
Now we know why he didn't pursue a more normal career after Columbia.
But Jamie had an alibi. His girlfriend Kathleen vouched for him. And Alain's girlfriend, Jackie Lee, vouched for him, saying he was with her in their hotel room at the time of the murder. And Dominique was at a photo shoot and was alibied by several models. So the case went cold, but many had their suspicions. Now, because we're amongst friends, I thought I would do a little visual. So I'm showing everybody a picture of Marie-Josée and the 3 suspects. This is Dominique, the ex-boyfriend, and this is Alain, her old friend from Montreal, and that is Jamie Gillis, the porn star neighbor. So who thinks it was Dominique?
Raise your hand if you think it's Dominique.
You think it's Dominique. Raise your hand if you think it was Alain. Okay. Raise your hand if you think it was Jamie. Interesting. Okay. All right.
Porn star Jesus.
I actually think it's not because he's a porn star. It's because he had such a ready baseball bat related answer. But
in 2002, Detective Stefano Braccini of the Cold Case Squad reopened the investigation. After re-interviewing 40 people connected to the case, he determined that, drum roll, Alain Montpetit, the king of disco, was in fact the murderer.
The king of murder.
Alain, the family friend. It turned out Marie-Josée had a lot to do with her pal Paula breaking up with Alain. Marie-Josée thought he was taking advantage of her friend and told her, that guy is weird. I mean, how many times have you said to a friend, when you say
no
that
one,
a guy
no one would
is
ever
weird,
stay in a relationship.
like
that
that
would be
guy
it.
is weird, that means it's like girl code for like, he creeps me out and I don't think you're safe. Is that fair to say?
I'm a little more liberal with my that guy is weird. But your point is well taken.
Okay. 5 years after the murder, Alain checked into a hotel in D.C. and overdosed on 7 grams of cocaine laced with morphine. And then in 2002, Jackie Lee, Alain's alibi, admitted that he was not, in fact, with her at the time of the murder. And the NYPD Blue declared the cold case solved. This is a very sad moment. Marie-Josée's father never recovered from his shock and grief. And on the second anniversary of her murder, he jumped off the balcony of his Montreal apartment. Horrible. Jamie Gillis died from melanoma in 2010. In the 70s, Jamie said he wanted his ashes to be scattered in Times Square. But years later, he changed his mind, saying that the cleaned up Times Square would contaminate his ashes. About Marie-Josée Saint-Antoine, Detective Braccini said, quote, "This is a tragedy. She could have been the next Cheryl Tiegs." I'm like, I don't think he was really up on his New York models. But does anyone have a theory about what was up with the white shoes? Why were the shoes at the bottom of the stairs?
Well, were they her shoes?
Yes,
we do know that they were her shoes. Maybe he dragged her in and they were knocked off.
Right. I was thinking maybe she was running up the stairs and she kicked them off running up the stairs. Anyway.
Oh, maybe she. Oh, Laura, that's a good idea.
Wait, what did Laura say?
It was a sign.
It was a sign.
She was leaving it as like a sign.
Oh,
like
interesting.
Things are not right.
Oh, things are not right. And maybe someone honestly, if Jamie Gillis had come home a little bit earlier, just really half an hour earlier, maybe she wouldn't have been murdered. It was a very
Jamie's
tight
fault. Back to Jamie.
Timeline. This is one fun fact. Jamie Gillis dated Gail Green.
No.
And she helped him get a good lawyer when the police kept threatening to arrest him. And that is a callback to episode 40, Operation Wife Drop and Fearsome Foodies.
Awesome. Gail Green.
I know. Of course she was having a relationship with a porn star.
She got around. But that's amazing. That's fabulous. And grim as usual.
Yes.
Thank you for another horrifying tale that will keep all of us in our apartments for the rest of our lives.
You're welcome. I was happy to do something that was in the neighborhood.
That's what brings you joy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yay.
Thank you. We're live.
Okay. I have an engagement question for you, Meg.
Okay.
Who was your first celebrity crush?
Oh, it's kind of
well. That's
everything
the point.
Is embarrassing.
Yes, everything is embarrassing. Wait till you hear some of these stories. So don't.
And mine
worry.
is so predictable. It's Sean Cassidy.
Oh,
sorry. I know I should be hipper.
No. Sean Cassidy had his appeal.
And I think he predated Matt Dillon. Matt Dillon was,
yes.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Well, actually, this was not something I was, I don't know, I was going to not talk about this. It wasn't even on my mind. But in 8th grade, I sold photographs of Tom Cruise out of my locker. I did.
How did you?
Because I went down to, there was a place on St. Mark's that sold movie stills.
Yeah.
And I bought a bunch of them and then marked them up and sold them out of my locker.
That is
So
crazy.
I did. I was like, got Tom Cruise, hot Tom Cruise. Come and get him. And it worked. I don't know.
That's very entrepreneurial.
It was
of you.
weird. It was weird. Well, my first celebrity crush, Ale, stop talking so much. Yes, the dark-haired one on Emergency. And he had a weird last name. It was like Iron Man or something. Mantooth, Randolph Mantooth. Joe had it. Randolph Mantooth. I liked him too. So that actually fits in with my theme for today. So the theme, which I rarely announce, is inappropriate crushes.
Okay.
And Busy, actually, I never would have remembered Randolph Mantooth. But yes, it's good to know we share a type. My inappropriate crush, that was the first one I recalled, is courtesy of Joe Papp. And since we are downtown right now and sort of near the Public Theater, I'm going to give a little bit of background.
Excellent.
Because you know I love a history lesson. And then we will get into my inappropriate crush of 1980. Joe Papp, interesting man. Major theater producer here in New York. And he started his career in the very early 50s. And in 1954, he started something that is now a staple of New York entertainment, Shakespeare in the Park.
Woo!
And all of his productions initially, and they were around the city, they were like theater for the people, were Shakespeare productions. In 1967, I suppose he got tired of being outside. So he rented the Astor Library from the city, which you will now know as the Public Theater.
Huh.
But it was all run down and messed up. And
the library.
The Astor Library.
Okay. I did not know this.
Indeed. And he rented it from the city for $1. And he fixed it up, and they were interested in, number one, supporting the arts. And that's, that ship sailed for this city, but that was one thing. And the other thing was that the Astor Library is the first building in the city to have been made a landmark building, a historical landmark. So Joe Papp doing good work, excellent. And some of his productions went from the Public to Broadway, such as favorites as Hair, A Chorus Line, and
Callback.
and the source of my first genuinely inappropriate crush. So that was the Pirates of Penzance. And there I was, 10 years old, at the Delacorte, riveted by Kevin Kline. And I was like, who is this? He's so robust. Her suit even. And that happened because it was the 100-year anniversary of the creation and first staging of the Pirates of Penzance by
Gilbert and Sullivan.
Yes, I know, but W.S. Gilbert and Arthur Sullivan. W.S. was lyrics and Arthur was music.
These are facts.
Yes. And interestingly, everything that you can read online about this Joe Papp production of Pirates of Penzance is that it was the 100-year anniversary. But interestingly, Pirates of Penzance actually premiered in 1879. So I think that something went wrong with the original production and they were delayed. But that's not truth. That's me.
Okay.
This extravaganza was so popular, it was so crazy popular that it moved to the Uris Theater in 1981.
With Linda Ronstadt, too.
Well, don't
I'm sorry.
Step on my gown, man. All right. So I'm going to give a little more backstory. It's very fitting that I saw him at the Delacorte because, and I think, have I told this story on this podcast before of the man who walked me home?
Yes.
Okay. So Kevin Kline unintentionally walked me home because whenever I go to Shakespeare in the Park and I'm by myself or I have to part from whoever I'm with, I try to find a guy to walk near who I think looks benign and who might, beat someone up if they try to mess with me. So I followed a man. I wound up being the stalker, and I followed a man who looked familiar and safe to me out of the park. And he did look familiar and safe because it was Kevin Kline. So
he's doing weird ads for something. Has anyone seen this on their phone? He's working out. He doesn't wear a shirt.
Eek.
I know. I don't want to ruin.
You're ruining a lot for me right now. Yes. Don't take away the robust 1980 Kevin Kline.
He's trying to get fit in his.
I don't want withered Kevin Kline.
Oh,
he is another great 80s callback. Phoebe Cates of Fast Times at Ridgemont High and many other fine films. Who was the neighbor of our friend Alejandra, who's in the audience right now.
And she runs and owns this amazing gift shop on 92nd and Madison, Blue Tree, which is an extraordinary place to get gifts.
So back to me.
So I see her every once in a while. And it used to be Penny Whistle when we were growing up. It was the toy store, and her parents owned Penny Whistle. So she just took over the store and just changed it to an adult place for gifts rather than a toy store. But Penny Whistle is fantastic.
Can I go on?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So this was an inappropriate crush because I was 10 and Kevin Kline was probably 30. And he was not the only hottie in this cast. There was also Linda Ronstadt, a big favorite of many. And she was a rock star. And there was a budding rock star who never quite made it, who was the male lead, and that was the ever gorgeous Rex Smith. Does anyone remember Rex Smith? Yes?
I do, yeah.
With the fabulously winged hair.
He was blonde.
He was like a cut-rate Andy Gibb.
Right. He looked like the guy from Dukes of Hazzard to me, like Bo from Dukes of Hazzard.
There was a similarity. So Rex Smith, also inappropriate age crush, but I didn't really have a crush on him. However, back to the idea of inappropriate, he was in a movie there was a movie and the book was the novelization, but there's this movie called Sooner or Later, written by Bruce Hart, who also wrote the theme song to Sesame Street. Who knew? I know, right? And Sooner or Later was the really inappropriate story of 13-year-old Jessie, who falls in love with her 17-year-old guitar teacher, Michael, and they enter into a relationship.
Oh.
Yes. And
13 and 17?
And then he realizes how old she is and he backs off, but says to her, I will remain with you, but we're just not going to go all the way. But they are still together. And to make matters worse, there was a sequel and then a third installment.
Okay, remind me, what is the name of this movie?
Sooner or Later. So obviously the answer was later. And then for the second one, it was called, oh God, I didn't write it down. But the second one was 4 years later. So she's now legal. I think it's she's 18 or something.
We're still talking about the Sooner or Later movie.
Yes, and that's when he winds up getting his big break and going to LA to become a rock star. And then the third installment, oh no, that's wrong. It was 1 year later. She's 14. Messed up. Then he comes back in the third installment. She's now 18. He has now gone through the whole cycle of Behind the Music. So he is now on his downward trajectory, an alcoholic, broken man, whose music career has failed and deposits himself at this 18-year-old girl's feet for her to fix him. Yeah. Not good. Inappropriate behavior, I would say. So this film stuck with me, and the novelization, yes, and the novelization made the rounds in my bunk at camp, much as Forever did, and others like that. So it's part of it's ingrained. A few other items about inappropriate behavior. So Sooner or Later was kind of a ripoff of Zeffirelli's movie Endless Love. Do you remember this?
Zeffirelli
I know.
directed Endless
Can you
Love?
believe it? Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes, he did. And so Endless Love, 1981, starred Brooke Shields, who was in many inappropriate films, which is actually now the focus of a documentary that premiered here in the city last night called Pretty Baby, Brooke Shields. And friend of the podcast, Christine O'Malley, was the producer. So yay, Christine.
No,
a lot of inappropriate.
Have to see that movie because I'm sure, yeah.
And it's all Brooke Shields participated. She's a producer.
Yeah.
So she's talking about being this objectified creature. But back to Rex Smith and his inappropriate behavior. So many people were in love with him, and he was total teen beat material. And though he was playing 17, he was over 25. So not good. And Rex Smith, his promising career began on Broadway. He was Danny Zuko on Broadway. Yes. Let that sink in for a second. But he had a big fall from grace. Who knows why? Remember how I referenced Andy Gibb earlier?
Yes.
Rex Smith wound up hosting Solid Gold. Yeah, remember?
Yeah.
The Solid Gold dance. Well, wait, does anyone remember what the Solid Gold dancers were called? Oh, you're right. I'm thinking of Denny Terrio of Dance Fever. Dance Fever. What were the dancers on Dance Fever called? No. It was Denny Terrio and Motion.
Oh, that's
Motion.
good.
That's right. And they were always like, da, 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 da. So that was Motion. Anyway, so Rex Smith had a real fall from grace and wound up replacing Andy Gibb after his unfortunate cocaine overdose. And back to Busy and how we started all of this. This is our connection, Meg. Rex Smith, our tie-in. Rex Smith ended the bulk of his illustrious career from 1990 to 1992 on As the World Turns.
It's like magic.
It is like magic. And I have another wrap up. I have two other wrap ups. So one of them is actually, it's amazing that our friend Ale is here tonight because I had another wildly inappropriate crush who maybe, I guess it was 10 years ago now, maybe a little more, became even more inappropriate. Ale and I, while at Nightingale, would hang out and do our homework together in her room. And we would talk endlessly about the unspeakable beauty of the young Mel Gibson.
Oh.
Yes, I love how everyone goes, wah, wah.
That was a disappointment.
The Year of Living Dangerously was the apex of his beauty and romantic appeal. And Ale and I were like unwell. We were mentally unwell. So we would swoon. So between teaching each other dance moves that never were deployed ever anywhere, we would swoon over Mel Gibson. And unfortunately, he's now an insane and admittedly alcoholic anti-Semite. So he's off the list. You know, he still, we can't erase, we don't cancel people here. We just acknowledge that they're shit. So that's that. And finally, a note for all you listeners out there. If you have finished watching Daisy Jones and the Six, which is hugely popular on Prime about 70s rock stars and their star-crossed love, finding either the original show or the movie that was made of the Pirates of Penzance will thrill you with Rex Smith and Linda Ronstadt at their finest. So wrapped it up.
Nice.
There you go.
So Jessica kind of beat us to the punch by
so excited.
doing our tie-ins because we were thinking that maybe we would ask you guys if you found any tie-ins in the two stories. I don't know if you can do better than As the World Turns.
I don't know. Was Rex Smith Canadian?
I don't know.
Maybe someone was
that
Canadian.
wasn't my story.
Marie-Josée. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he played in Canada.
Thank you guys so much for coming. This is quite an adventure for us, and we really appreciate it. And of course, most of all, thank you so much to Kevin and Malt and Mold.
Thank you, Malt and Mold.
Malt and Mold.